For these aviators, the unthinkable has happened. Their fighter was hit, and they've ejected over rough seas in the middle of the night. Their aim now is to suppress fear and prevent panic until rescued. They'll stay alive because they've had the best survival training in the world. At the Naval Survival Training Institute, known as NIST, Priority 1 is to assist Navy and Marine Corps aviators and aircrew in winning the fight and to ensure their survival. Aviation survival training instructors regularly rotate to the fleet to see what's needed in the aviation community and bring that information back to the training environment. Training begins at the Aviation Survival Training Center. In addition to first aid courses, aviators take part in hands-on realistic scenarios designed to prevent mishaps and to survive them if they happen.
Eject, eject, eject.
The effects of hypoxia, reduced oxygen, are simulated in two areas. In the low-pressure chamber, students learn how to recognize the deadliest altitude threats and how to combat them. In the simulator room, a similar effect is created with the ROBD, Reduced Oxygen Breathing Device.
NIST 1, climb and maintain, flight level 170.
Instructors can induce hypoxia by reducing the oxygen flow to the student's mask. Pilots learn how to recognize and fight the dangerous effects while keeping their aircraft stable. Spatial disorientation is another main cause of mishaps. Pilots and crew can lose their situational awareness and think the aircraft is in a different attitude than it really is.
Okay guys, sit back, relax, make sure you keep those turn buttons pushed in at all times for me.
The multispatial disorientation demonstrator teaches students to trust their instruments rather than their senses. In the virtual reality trainer, a parachute drop simulation is projected inside the student's helmet.
All right, now if there's a ship below you, make sure you avoid that ship.
But there's no way to simulate a parachute landing without actually hitting the ground. At a nearby Alabama field, students are towed into the air, then drop 200 to 300 feet. Here's where they put their canopy control procedures to the test. But the main purpose of the parasail class is to practice landing, properly transmitting the force of impact to avoid injury. They also learn what to do in a high wind situation where they might be dragged across the landscape.
Good job.
Of course, not all landings are on solid ground. Water survival is the next phase of naval aviation survival training. Students learn how and when to release their canopy during a water landing.
All right, step off now.
As well as what to do if they're dragged across the surface. And how to manually inflate their life preserver units to help them stay afloat. The most critical part of pool training is the underwater scenarios. First is the swimmer, or shallow water initial memory mechanical exit release. Using a reference point, students crawl to the swimmer device, then operate a series of handles to pull themselves through and surface. Why is this type of training necessary? Because of incidents like this. Scenes like this are rare, but when they happen, sailors and Marines need to be prepared. Being upside down and disoriented while underwater is a life-threatening situation. In the SWET, or Shallow Water Egress Trainer, students are taught to use reference points to orient themselves and find their way out. The Multi-Place Underwater Emergency Egress Trainer, better known as the Dunker, simulates the interior of a transport helicopter. Once the Dunker hits and rolls over, the students must find their reference points, release their lap belts, egress through the proper exits, and swim clear. Simulating a worst-case scenario, blackout goggles are issued. Now, unable to see the exits, students are forced to rely only on handholds and reference points to get to safety. The final bit of pool training covers the hoist, with fire hoses simulating the rotor wash of a helicopter. Once hoisted, the training moves outdoors. The final phase of naval aviation survival training is bay operations. Life raft organization is an important part of sea survival. Students work in groups to flip an overturned life raft, then climb aboard. Assignment of essential duties is taught, such as food gathering, communications, and first aid. The proper use of signaling devices is also covered. And hopefully with a rescue signal comes rescue. The hoist training at poolside is now put to the test as each student experiences the thrill of the rescue. At some point in every aviator's career, there's a chance they or someone they know will be involved in a mishap. If that happens, there are two choices: sink or survive. At the Naval Survival Training Institute, their mission is to train you to survive.